Hi everybody, hope you're doing marvellously well. I'm sitting here with the rather wonderful Piper Payne. How are you?
Hi Warren, thanks for having me.
This is fun. I've had a blast here. We came out for Summer NAMM and tagged on quite a few extra days so we can hang out. And of course, I love this facility that you're in with some really wonderful people.
I'm blessed to be here. Anybody that knows the other studio that I work in out in Oakland would recognize the speakers and the system and the console, but mine are, I'd like to say, prettier. They're the cherry finish, but this room is incredible, and Pete Lyman owns Infrasonic Sound, and I'm now a mastering engineer here with Dave Gardner and Dan Bacigalupi, and so now I've just joined the team.
That's absolutely amazing. Mm-hmm. You were born and bred, you were saying, in
just outside
Dearborn?
Detroit. Yep, Dearborn, Michigan. Went off to Ann Arbor for undergrad in audio engineering and in the PAT program at the School of Music there, and then off to Norway for grad school.
How did you get over to Norway apart from getting on a plane? No, were they linked or something? The course was this.
That particular school, it's a very international school, and so they would take, I think it was 6 or 7 people from all over the world, and have this very intense self-directed study grad program. And so the U of M has a wonderful audio engineering program, and they just would always kind of make the rounds and ask for recommendations by the faculty, and somebody nominated me as a potential, and then I got an invitation, and I got a stipend for going to grad school, and so I went. So I basically had a scholarship and decided to go. The next step was Florida. I got a job working for Bob Katz as his mastering assistant.
Wow!
And then after that,
that's a big jump. How did you get a job working for Bob Katz as his mastering assistant?
Grad school in Norway.
Yep.
Back up. Grad school in Norway, I was working for a tape transfer archival facility called Memnor, which is a small part of a bigger company called Memnon. Mm-hmm. They had a consulting engineer who's a mastering engineer, and he invited me to come and help him out at his studio here and there. And from the first day of working with him, I fell in love with mastering because I had been working on a couple of degrees at that point basically in classical recording. And so I had already been running my own location recording business, and I ended up recording a lot of incredible artists and groups, but I was already starting to repeat the repertoire. So I was already starting to repeat recording things that I had recorded a couple of years prior. So when I sat down in the mastering chair, I was able to start QCing records, and I realized that, oh my gosh, we can be detail oriented and focus on quality, and and always try and strive for the very best we can. And I get to work on all kinds of music every day. So I like pop music and top 40 kind of stuff, and I was raised on country music, and so I being in the classical world, I loved it, but I really, really wanted to work on new things every day. And so mastering, we work on at least 1 record, sometimes 2 records a day, and you're going to hit every genre in a week. And so I just kind of fell in love with that. So after working for that engineer, I became his apprentice, and I was supposed to go back and work for him again after my grad school program was done. But I got back to Michigan to do the visa process and go back to Norway. The day I got back, he called me and said, "Hey, look, I know you're supposed to come back here, but I just got word that Bob Katz is looking for an assistant, and he's expecting your call. So you better go get that job."
Wow.
So I ended up, I got hired to work for Bob, and that was one of the coolest and most daunting experiences of my life. But I learned a lot, and some of the things that Bob taught me, I use every day in my work. So one of the things I learned from Bob, reverb will make or break the mix. So when you're presented with a mix that you can clearly tell that it's got like that sort of brilliant reverb, just suggesting, for instance, to the mixing engineer that they send us a new mix with a low pass filter tuned correctly on the reverb can sometimes make all the difference. Other things, always striving to have the very best computing power and conversion that you can possibly find, and never turning your back on technology, because that's, every day I think about that. I think about all the craziness in the computers and technology that we've had even in the last few years. I mean, to be able to have this mastering chain show up on one Ethernet cable and then break out to all the different flavors of conversion I could ever want at a button click. That's awesome. But what happens when something fails, or you have a bad cable in the system or whatever? So you got to always go back to basics, even when you're dealing with digital systems. Go back to just basic signal flow. And that was a big thing that I learned from Bob, because when I worked for him, we were right in the middle of transitioning from a 20-year integration of SADI to a brand new system with Sequoia. So that, and then taking all of the, he had a massive project management and archive system that was all integrated with key commands in SADI. And then we had to, move all that stuff over to a new workstation. And that was just for somebody just out of college, even, I had been an apprentice and an assistant in a mastering studio, but that is a huge undertaking for somebody that's never seen that stuff before.
Baptism of fire, yes.
Yes, that's been, I think, a theme of my life. I for better or worse, run in head first and just figure it out. And that's probably the last thing that I take away from my experience with all the mentors I've had, Bob included, is just, if you are resourceful enough and you break it down and simplify it for yourself, you can pretty much get yourself out of any situation, and be successful. So
that's fantastic.
After Florida,
yep,
I got an opportunity to go to the Banff Center, and so then I went up to work for the Banff Center in Alberta, which is an incredible arts retreat, and that's where I got more time to spend on making projects that I really wanted to make and that I hadn't had a chance to do yet. And I also had got to spend a lot of time with other mastering engineer mentors. And then when I was finishing up there, I had an opportunity to stick around and do another contract up there, or I could go somewhere else. And I got an invitation to go to San Francisco and work as a mastering engineer there, and keep honing my chops and learn how to cut lacquer in San Francisco. So then I did that. And I've been in San Francisco in the Bay Area for the last 10 years.
That's fair. What was the company you went to work with there?
At the time, it was called Michael Romanowski Mastering.
I know Michael.
Michael is he's a wonderful mastering engineer and a great teacher, and he was a really great mentor for a very long time for me.
Why did I not put two and two together that you worked with Michael?
I don't know. I'm my own person now, I guess. So
it's amazing. Well, I think exactly. I think that your career, before, all around it, and the fact that I know your work, but it's strange I didn't. Yeah, but
it's been a few years though since I.
It's been a few years, but also I think I was just talking to Reed about this yesterday. Is that all of the great New York, mastering engineers? You think of them because they were at one time sort of under one umbrella, but the reality is each of them they have so much personality in their work,
nuanced.
Yeah, so nuanced that you forget that at one stage most of them were in one building.
Yeah.
But,
well, I think, also, the time that I was working for Michael, which was the better part of 6 years, for quite a while, for the first year I worked second shift and was basically, a glorified assistant, and then I got my own room next, and then I built my own clientele, and eventually we moved over to a new facility in Berkeley, and then after that, a couple of years of that, I had an opportunity to start my own facility in Oakland. So it's been, that I said you said trial by fire, and that's a theme of my world, is just a lot of change happening quickly, but trying to adapt to that is a lot of work. So when this opportunity came to join Infrasonic, Pete and I had talked about it for a long time. Pete Lyman, who owns Infrasonic Sound and Infrasonic Mastering, and the first couple of offers were to go join the facility in LA, and I already had a good thing going in Oakland, so I didn't want to change again, another big change. But then a couple years later, this opportunity to join Infrasonic but keep my studio in Oakland exactly as it is, not have to change rooms again, not have to change my facility, not have to shake up my staff again, means that I can build a clientele here in Nashville, join an incredible team, have the services of lacquer cutting on one of the best lathes in the world here in Nashville, and also still take care of my Oakland clients in a room that's mine and that I know and I own all the equipment in, and having that autonomy, but also that just amazing support and filter of this larger company that's kind of the best of all worlds.
Yeah, absolutely, and it sort of mirrors the New York thing as well, because I feel like what I love about even just this building is that everybody here is like, could be their own boss of their own company.
But you choose to work together.
Yeah.
It's cool. Yeah.
That's kind of a big deal. Because I know just like as a company owner, I mean, like it would just be amazing to have like 5 of me. You know what I mean?
It would be cool.
It would, you know what I mean? And that's what you've got here. Because you've got Reed just over there, mixing huge albums. And
Reed and Pete work together on a lot of projects, and I'm also just incredibly impressed with all of the other things that Reed has going on as well. It's as another serial entrepreneur. It's really cool to have him as a friend and mentor, and he's very admirable on the impact that he has, not just on the music scene here in Nashville, but all the other things he has going on around the city.
So you spend a lot of time in the vinyl world, supporting pressing plants, etc. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? Because it is definitely what's the best way of describing it? A very current topic.
Yes, hot topic.
Hot topic, there you go.
Yes, pressing topic.
Pressing topic.
If you will.
You sound like a dad now. It's like dad jokes. Pressing topic. That's me.
Yes, I do like puns. I like wordplay and dad jokes a lot. A lot of the last few years of my world, not just doing mastering and trying to support the artists that I work with, getting through the vinyl process, I've also dedicated a lot of time and effort to building tools and products that will support vinyl record pressing plants to be able to lower the amount of time that an artist is waiting to get their pressing done properly, and then also to support the quality control and quality assurance of vinyl record pressing plants. And so I've designed a system that is a software and hardware integration for QC very, very quickly. And to be able to test 1% of every record that gets pressed with a real human being, and then to take a high resolution image of every copy that comes off the press. I have a couple of partners that are making new presses, and
that's incredible.
Yeah, and so and I've also been lucky enough to get into a lot of the pressing plants in the world, and to talk to them about my system, and they're all very excited.
I mean, when I visited a couple of places, I mean, I didn't realize there was anybody making new presses, let alone...
There are a couple of companies.
Oh, a couple of companies?
Actually, one company right here in Nashville, and those are my partners.
Wow, I mean, that seems like a massive undertaking.
It is, but when it's a machine shop that has been dedicated to supporting and keeping vinyl record pressing plants running for the last 50 years. And so it just made sense that they would get into making their own presses because they can manufacture them right on site there. And then that became a business, and now we're looking at potentially a new facility here in Nashville. So we'll see. Wow,
I mean, I'll ask a sort of pretty obvious question. I mean, how much is a press? I mean, I would imagine that's incredibly expensive.
A press with all the assets that it takes to run a press, you're looking at an investment of at least $320,000 for the press, the cooling tower to cycle cold water back through the press, and then the heating element, be it a boiler or a microboiler, or there are some electric presses that are out there. But the press itself, you're looking at about $200,000.
Strangely enough,
the facility.
That's actually less than I thought.
Yeah. Well, that's just for one press.
Oh, yeah.
To build a proper facility that makes money, you need you need at least 4 or 5 presses.
Okay, that's different.
So yeah.
Different investment.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And what are the pros and cons of an electric press versus a traditional press?
So an electric press
Yep.
versus a traditional steam, steam pressure water cooling system where you're cycling a whole bunch of water through the system is just not going to be. The cycle time's not going to be as fast, and so there's no real point to do it because you won't make any money because you can't cycle the records fast enough to be able to actually press enough records to turn a profit.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. So the way vinyl records get made is we cut lacquer from either a tape machine like this or from digital vinyl prep files. We cut onto lacquer sides that gets put into an electroplating bath after a couple of other processes, and then the metal adheres to the original lacquer, creates negatives. Eventually, through a couple more steps, you end up with the ability to, as I say, make waffles. So a piece of plastic gets molten plastic gets put in between these stampers, and then the press comes down and squeezes it really hard. But you have to squeeze it really hard at the right temperature controlled for long enough, and then run a flash cooling system through it so that the plastic hardens in the right way. Right. So in order to do that, you need a system that can heat up really quickly and then cool down really quickly. And so you kind of need to use a traditional boiler system to do that the right way. There's a lot to it. It's hard to make a vinyl record.
Yeah, we visited a plant, and I'm sure we'll put a link into that video. We went to Rainbow on Pete's recommendation.
Yes, Rainbow, they're wonderful people.
Yeah, they're really nice. Yeah. We did Pete's video a couple of years ago, and then did Rainbow's immediately afterwards.
One of the biggest pressing plants in the world.
Yeah.
Yeah, very cool.
And on that street, they said at one stage there was a whole bunch of pressing plants just on that one street.
I mean, there's I'm not sure exactly where we're at now, but there's maybe 100 plants worldwide.
Oh, it's more than I thought.
And I mean, including these small boutique kind of plants that are, a couple of presses here, one rich dude who wants to make records, which is awesome, with one press or something like that. There used to be 100 pressing plants of Rainbow's size in LA alone, when we had to make hundreds of millions of records a year. And having the ability to then, control that distribution meant that artists and labels were able to make money properly. So records are still coming up roughly 20% year over year to be the sole way I think that an artist can still make money off of a very expensive recording process.
Yeah, absolutely. And I grew up on albums, I still call them albums. It's really weird to I don't know when the changeover, when suddenly it became vinyl. Do you know what I mean? I don't remember ever thinking of it as vinyl. You used to buy an album or you'd buy a cassette. So I still love that feeling, and I love the sort of ritual of bringing it out and holding it only by the edges and flipping it. And there was something fantastic about it. Also, I think it gives a sort of value to music that we love. Yeah. It makes it,
It's tangible, and you can actually, you can like you said, look through the artwork, look at who recorded, who mixed, who mastered this thing, and then go find more stuff by them. And that's something that, when CDs came out and eventually replaced vinyl as the main distribution for music, you still could flip through a booklet and see some artwork. If you could figure out how to get it out of the stupid case. The little tabs. And then as soon as you can actually look at these graphs, right? So as soon as digital became a thing, then CD sales started to plummet. The same way when CDs were rising, vinyl sales started to plummet. And so now that digital streaming and digital files have been out for a long time, you're starting to see that people are craving the tangibility, and the artists are craving a way of expressing themselves visually.
Sure.
And vinyl is, I think, here to stay for quite a long time.
I do too. And I don't think what was really fun about interviewing Pete a couple of years ago about this was there was no illusions of sort of Luddite behavior of like, vinyl sounds amazing. So, like, none of us believe that. We all know there's limitations.
We do. I think that still hi-fi folks are they don't quite understand the resolution of a digital file.
Yeah.
How much dynamic range is available, where the noise floor is, et cetera. Yeah. But there is something very, very special about an all analog all the way through the process.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's as you're saying, it's another delivery method, not just of the music, but of the artwork and the lyrics and the, I mean, even on a CD, I mean, come on, like assistant engineer recorded that. I mean,
I still remember the first, like, I'm going to sound like such a jerk at this moment, but I still remember the first like full-length CD I ever mastered for money, because I'd spent like 4 solid years working full-time as an apprentice, honing my skills before I ever felt like I had put in my 10,000 hours of, the little, what's the little powerful punch, what's that?
Sure. I know what you mean, but I can't
that thing.
Yeah.
Anyway, I still remember after I, had mastered my very first record for money, because I hadn't actually wanted to accept money for something that I didn't feel I was really, really good at. So after several years of apprenticing and learning how to master records, I finally made the very first DDP for a client, and I held it in my hands and I went, oh man, I thought this would be so much cooler. I made a thing. I guess at that point in my life, I had always imagined that I would be the first record I ever mastered would like go out onto vinyl or something. I'd be able to like give it to my mom and say, thank you for supporting me through all this. But now, it's, I was like so sadly disappointed that I was like, oh, okay, it's a CD.
Yeah, now you can send a link or a Spotify playlist. Here's what I just did.
Just keep it updated. Here, Mom, these are all the things I've mastered this week. Go look.
Yeah. I think we're in a great time now. I really do. I mean, we can talk about streaming services and stuff, but I think it's wonderful. I think, having grown up at a time when it was kind of cassettes and AM radio was still big in the 80s. I mean,
cassettes are coming back now, apparently. Yeah. I don't know why, but...
I don't know why either. I never got cassettes. That wasn't that big in the UK like it was in America. I know that there was at one stage cassettes were outselling vinyl over here. Never quite got that way in America. But I understand at that time it was the MP3 of the 80s. You got in a car and you put a cassette plate. I get it.
Also because it was, it's even as at the height of the vinyl pressing industry, the ability to get a record made in, just a couple of weeks at the most sometimes. People still needed a way to get records out faster. And so cassettes, you could dupe them at a very, very high speed, and you could get, it was just a little printed booklet, and, boom, you've got your music, and you can now sell it at your concerts, or you can, I always look at music, and especially physical music, as the way that an artist is connecting with their business. A lot of folks look at it like the way that they're connecting with their fans and like distributing their music and stuff, but it's really, if you're not able to recoup the cost of making your album, you're not going to make another one, right? And so to find a better way for artists to be able to control their own distribution and to see dollars and a return on their investment faster is going to be the way that our music industry continues to grow properly.
Sure.
The way that I'm thinking about the music business and making records and how to make it more accessible for artists to get these things done properly and recoup the cost of paying thousands of dollars just to master a record.
Sure.
Part of that comes from just being a little bit humble about the artists that I'm working with and understanding that even my services are, for some of them, the most expensive thing they're spending on this album. And also understanding that they've now gone through their life savings to make this record, and I'm the last stage of this. So the more I can do to just support them and help them recoup the cost of making their record, that's what I'm really driven by that heavily. So the other side of it is that I've been in the Bay Area, which is some of the leaders in technology and process and efficiency, although it is delightfully an inefficient place. The Bay Area has taught me so much about understanding new technology and new ways to do old things, and to find some way to if we can do it elegantly, that's cool too. But really, it's about finding a new way to see these problems. So I think that's part of the training. Also, technology-wise, I've spent a lot of time working with companies to build software and hardware solutions for audio stuff. So the thing that a lot of people don't know about me is I've spent, I worked for Sonic Studio for a long time. I ran the beta teams there. I was one of the only QC people that they had hired for a long time. So testing mastering software over and over and over again, maybe understand not only how software is built for audio systems, but also what some of the issues that I hear all the time about people complaining about, Pro Tools doesn't do this, or Sequoia doesn't do this, or whatever it is. It made me a lot faster at troubleshooting issues in software, and so I then used that knowledge to help build some of these new technologies for vinyl plants. And that technology, quality control, quality assurance, that's what mastering is. And so if I can't help innovate that process for a specific industry, and I have the ability to, why wouldn't I?
Can you give us a little bit of insight on the music you've worked on the music you're currently working on?
Certainly, yeah. I'll start with what I'm currently working on, which is I'm just finishing up a new record for Madam Gandhi. She is a longtime client of mine, and I've been delighted to work on, I think, everything that she's put out. Kieran is an activist and an incredible, just a new way of approaching problems, just like I deal with all the time. She's challenged a lot of the social norms that we've had over the years that are specifically related to women. But also in her music, it's empowering and it's connecting with a wide range of audience and listeners, because she was probably best known as the touring drummer for MIA, and also she worked with Thievery Corporation, and she's been working on her solo albums now, which are kind of they're an amazing combination of like trap and hip hop and pop and just the things that she's saying and helping to lead the futurist female movement. She's really incredible. She's also a TED Fellow. She graduated from this, she's like an MBA and worked for Spotify for a long time. So we align a lot on that. I'm working on a new album for her.
Fantastic.
Also, Steven Universe, which is a show on Cartoon Network. They're coming out with the new Steven Universe movie, and so I've been asked to. I've worked for that show in the past, mastering their soundtracks, but I just finished a new single for the movie, and then we're just finishing up the soundtrack for the movie as well. So that'll be cut onto lacquer and put out in vinyl as well. I've also over the years worked for other artists like Geographer, Third Eye Blind, 100th. This Legend, which had a few of the members of Yellow Card. I've spent a lot of time in lots of different genres, even though my original training was in classical recording. But I like all kinds of music.
It's interesting. A lot of mastering engineers I've interviewed and are friends with start out in classical, and a lot of them are actually classical musicians. Bob Ludwig was a classical musician.
Yes, that's right.
I think pop and rock is traditionally we thought of as being less dynamic, shall we say? It's a little bit more full frontal. Like EDM now, of course, is famous for being, hit you over the head. Not that I don't want to oversimplify. But
well, I do work in a lot of I think the best theme of a lot of the masters that I get asked to work on is it's either stuff that has to is like fun music that has to sound good, or it is heavy bass music. So so like a lot of electronic singer-songwriter kind of stuff. Like there's an artist called ANML, ANIML in LA. I've worked with her on a whole bunch of records over the years. Built for the Sea is a new that's a band that we have a new album coming out that I just finished up for them. And even somebody like Geographer, who's sort of like an electropop-ish kind of guy. The theme is that apparently there's something that I do well in bass. So it's
great.
Kind of fun. Probably because I have 4 subs to listen to, and a dog. A dog that looks up every time I hit some distortions.
I think also as from a production engineering mixing perspective, is like we like to have good communication with our mastering engineer because you're who we learn from. You know, like hey, how did that go? Well, it was great, but there was a weird bump at 150. You know, that's the stuff I want to know. And I had that on an album a few years ago, and I had to go through my chain and realize that I was using Jonathan Little's Voice of God just a little bit too aggressively and just tweak. And I think that's a big part of it. I don't want to just send my music off and then the next time I hear it, it's, you know, on a record or on the radio. You want the communication. So.
Right, and I like working with artists and engineers that are always striving to do better and better and better. You know, I'm not that kind of mastering engineer. I mean, I'm busy. Like I'm making a lot of records, but I am never too busy to jump on the phone even for 30 seconds and say, hey, can you run this again? We have a bump at 150. I know if I master this, you're gonna hate it. Yep. Just like, let's make both of our jobs easier and let's do it right the first time. And I think that's why I've had a lot of repeat business and loyal customers and who have followed me through all of these other transitions in my career, even now out to do part-time work out here in Nashville. That relationship and that communication with the artists and the producers and engineers that I work with it just builds trust, and it makes it so that all of us do a better job at the end of the day, and we can all be more proud of the album when it's done.
And when you work long hours like we do, your social life becomes the people you work with. Yeah. You know, you get to hang out with and they become your friends. So yeah, it's important to have amazing communication.
So just some context for how I'm sitting here talking to you in Nashville. My facility in Oakland joined the Infrasonic team, and so the studio in Oakland is all exactly the same as it has been for the last few years. Same speakers, same amplifier, similar console, so that we don't have any drop in quality coming out of Oakland, but we are able to add the services here in Nashville. And so there's a Trinov system in here. I can dial in the sound of my room in Oakland, and there are very few variables in this weird little solution we have to make me bi-coastal. So
nice.
Yeah, so it's all working out really well, and everybody seems pretty happy. So
are you going to maintain the Oakland one?
I will, at least for a few years.
Right.
You know, if we end up doing something bigger out here and there's a place for all of my equipment to come out, then it would be nice to all be in one facility together. But Infrasonic has 3 locations. It's got Nashville, LA, and now with my facility joining the team, Oakland. And so it's pretty cool. We can support all these different markets, and people can actually come, and you know, we don't have a lot of attended sessions because people trust us, which is cool. Right. But if we have to, or if there's, you know, some high profile thing that we have to do in any certain city, all 3 of us we've got the same equipment. So in theory, we could all go work out of each other's facilities, which is not at all a traditional thing for mastering engineers to do. But because we have a Trinov system, we can have user presets.
Are you all using the Trinov?
I don't have a Trinov yet in my system, in my
Right.
room, but I haven't needed one. But because I can come out to Nashville and like just put my own preset, pull that up here in Pete's studio, I've tuned it to sound like my room. And because I have the same front end, same transfer console, a lot of the same gear, and Pete and I have a really similar workflow. I have the exact same. I have the same speakers.
Is that coincidental?
No, mine came first. Pete.
Highlight that. Yours came first. I like that.
Pete was working on BB5s.
Yeah.
Without the lower sub in his facility in LA. And then when he moved out here, he got a pair of these big BB5s with the lower cabinets. Somewhere in the middle there, when I started my company previously, which was called Neato Mastering, I put in a BB5 XPD system, which are cherry cabinets. So they're very pretty. The amplifiers and the active system, the cabling, all of that is all the same. Actually, similar power solutions as well, even. And so having the ability to have very few variables. Speakers are the same, amplifiers are the same, cables are the same. Mass Select transfer console, same thing. Patch bay for the gear. Half of the gear in here is the same as what I have in Oakland. I have a couple of other little flavors. I've got a GML, and there's a massive passive in the console, and a mini massive. Which Ivana Manley, if you watch this, please make the mini massive again. Thank you. And then I've got I have radar Ultra Nyquist converters in an ADA chassis. Where Pete has Burl and some Rupert Neve Designs converters instead. So really, I've been working here for a while. I was working here for more than a month before people even really knew that I had moved. And so, in order to not freak anybody out or potentially lose confidence or lose business, we had the transition start part-time a lot earlier than what we publicized. And so far, we're having extremely good results.
Fantastic.
Very, very happy, and my clients seem happy. So everything, I guess that's all that really matters.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Is your room's dimensions pretty similar?
Similar. My room is, the rake on the ceiling is a little more shallow, and then it levels off in the back. And that just, the angle of that, I don't need a cloud. And the ceiling height is almost the same. The left-right dimensions are about the same. The front-to-back dimensions are about the same.
Okay.
Where Pete has this alcove, I just have a door at the back of my room. And my room has a very low-pile carpet, which I think helps tame a little bit too. But GIK, acoustic panels, similar as what Pete has here. And I have a little tiny lathe, a little Presto lathe in my room, and I've got an MCI tape machine, just like these ones here. I think I have a nicer turntable.
Thank you, Piper.
Yeah, thanks, Warren.
It's been a lot of fun. Yeah. As ever, please leave a bunch of comments and questions below. Maybe I'll throw you under the bus and answer any that I don't know the answer to.
I like buses. Master bus.
You really are. You do have the dad jokes down. I'm very impressed.
Thank you. I've been on my best behavior, though, just so you know.
Oh, really?
Thanks, Warren. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a marvelous time recording, mixing, and mastering, of course, and leave a bunch of comments and questions below.